Welcome back to our opinion panelists. We're going to stick to that topic we just heard about, these crazy high winds and the wildfires they're fueling. The largest fire burning in the country right now is the Hermit's Peak Calf Canyon fire. Hermit's Peak started as a prescribed burn before it grew out of control. And during a briefing on the wildfires this week, Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham said New Mexicans don't have to worry about that happening again, and that the state forester, Homeland Security, other state and federal officials will all have a conversation about how and when these burns are performed. But of course, the damage is already done. The governor says she understands people's anger and that she's upset too, calling this situation negligent. Now she's looking for accountability and says it's likely Congress and other federal partners will accept that there is significant federal responsibility, adding, if anyone wants a fight over it, they'll get one. So let's start with you, Kathy. I know it's hard right now in the middle of fighting them, but this issue of accountability and how we get at that, what's your take on how we should get at that?
Oh, I love accountability. Let's all use it in all things all the time. And I would say that everyone does need to accept accountability for this controlled burn and the fact that it got way out of hand. I know that, people have accepted some responsibility, but I do think that we may be getting the right answer to the wrong question. So I think maybe the accountability needs to be around discussing whether or not this is climate change or, it's a function of this controlled burn getting out of hand and there being some malfeasance involved. So I think we need to talk about climate change and the fact that perhaps this was no surprise and that it was a predictable, almost certain future that this was going to happen at some point, because we're talking about accountability for this particular issue, but there's a larger issue that needs to be discussed.
Yeah, and we've talked to very recently lots of folks who talk about how what worked in the past isn't going to now, because again, winds, the heat, the dryness, it was all earlier. None of us can really remember a time of that serious of a wildfire in April, right? And here we are in May. We haven't even really hit the traditional wildfire season, and it's unlike anything we've ever seen. So Tom, for you again too, is it good for the governor to sort of lay the groundwork to lead the charge down the road about finding out what we do to adjust and to address that accountability question?
Oh, absolutely. She's the best person to represent the state's interests to the federal government at this point. And, the overall state response through Department of Homeland Security has really been quite impressive as far as the outreach and coordination amongst all the different communities who, for the most part, there might just be a local fire department or a county fire department. And DHS has done a really good job. And I think that the governor can really take that coordinated state effort to basically, show Washington how they need to kind of come up and help New Mexico get through this time.
And part of that, last week, the governor, of course, announced her request for a federal emergency declaration. And unlike most of those federal requests, it was signed and approved by the president within 2 days. And now the state is set to receive federal emergency funds while the emergency is still ongoing. Jessica, how important is that for a state like ours where people are struggling? We know that we are taxing our water systems even more to fight the fires, and many water systems, people are being told they can't drink the water because of the ash and things that are getting into their systems. So that money is really crucial here, isn't it?
Yeah, fighting fires is expensive on all fronts. You're talking about the cost for personnel, you're talking about the cost for management, about the cost for water, and it's especially when you've got such a long period ongoing fire. It was exceptional to see that signed as quickly as it was, but I think that it hasn't escaped anyone, local, regional, state, federal level, how big of a disaster this actually is and how much of an impact it has actually had on New Mexico residents.
Yeah, now if we could just get the national media once again to realize that A, we are not Arizona, and B, we are in the United States, we'd really be doing something, right? A lot of examples of that of late. We did talk about the extraordinarily difficult conditions facing wildland firefighters. Laura Paskus with Our Land has done a lot on that, including their compensation, just $15 an hour in most cases. Well, the U.S. House passed a bipartisan bill to ensure federal firefighters receive the same job-related disability and retirement benefits as state, county, municipal firefighters. Tom, how important is that when you're talking about, 1,400, 1,500 people here trying to fend off all these flames in all these locations?
Yeah, so if the question is about increasing the amount of funding that we pay firefighters, then I would say that yes, we definitely need to take a look at that. Of course, the economy right now, it's kind of interesting how, it's a $15 an hour job amidst this time of inflation. And so, I think that but of course, the work that firefighters and other public servants do in life-saving situations, really, those are services you can't really put a price tag on. But, really getting, firefighters and supporting them in different ways to really help save New Mexico communities. Hopefully there'll be a little extra incentive if that's possible for all of their effort.
Yeah, and circling back to my earlier point, obviously folks can do two things at once. But Kathy, do you think that a lot of these calls for accountability and the effort there might be better used to help boost up these firefighters who have seasonal work, and when it's not fire season, they're not eligible for health care benefits, the $15 an hour? This is something that is not just an issue in New Mexico, right? We see it throughout the Southwest, and how do we lead that charge in the midst of all this too?
I think that you're right, that we don't just work on one thing if we're going to approach this issue holistically. In some of the work that I've done with New Mexico counties, I became aware of the fact that many counties in our 33 don't have a professional fire service. They're working with volunteer firefighters, so they're not getting paid anything. And so it is definitely something that we need to address. And obviously $15 is minimum wage for a really dangerous, hazardous job that requires some expertise. And so it's something I think we can and should address, and that the public should demand it.
Let's move on to evacuations now, something a lot of people are struggling and dealing with. And during her briefing earlier this week, the governor stressed the importance of New Mexico's Ready, Set, Go policy for people near these fires, saying she fears too many New Mexicans aren't following the best practices. Is this a communication thing? She also made a point of mentioning that there haven't been any known cases of looting for people who may not want to leave their house because they're afraid things will get stolen. But this puts firefighters in danger. It can just exacerbate an already terrible situation. Is there anything more we could be doing to try to reinforce people getting out when experts say it's time to get out? Let's go to you, Jessica. Sorry.
Oh, sure. So I think you have to realize that we are talking about more than just a danger to yourself. People love their homes. They live there for a reason. They're emotionally connected to them. They're emotionally connected to their community. So it's always going to be difficult to convince them, no matter the danger to themselves, to just abandon that and hope for the best, which is basically what we're telling those now affected by the Hermits and Cav Canyon fire is, you've got to get out and leave everything behind except the necessary items. What we saw in Ruidoso during the McBride fire was a lot of people choosing to stay and to do what they could to save their homes, regardless of how well it was communicated that Ready, Set, Go. When they were given the go, they just refused. And part of it was fear of looting. Some of it was they wanted to lend a hand. They wanted to be able to participate in saving their homes and saving their community. I think when it comes to the question of communication, we are dealing with fires that are burning in rural areas where it's always been difficult to get out any type of public service announcement. And we're seeing that in a lot more, especially in northern New Mexico. And for those who haven't been involved in coverage of a fire, who haven't been in a fire, I think it's difficult for them to realize how much you lose, how many services you actually lose during a fire. You know, you're not getting water, as you mentioned. You are isolated, you're cut off. There's sometimes no electricity. Sometimes you don't even have a radio in the house. So we talk a lot about being ready, set, go now, when we should be talking about preparing communities in the line of fire, excuse the pun, way ahead of time.
Absolutely. And again, a quick reminder that as we've learned, a lot of the evacuation orders don't even so much have to do in that moment with the fire moving towards, but it's the escape routes out, the routes you need to get out. So really important to heed all of that. Thanks again to our panel. And in less than 10 minutes, we'll take up one final discussion, Virgin Galactic's recent announcement that commercial space flights won't happen as soon as they planned.